An estimated 10,000 people have been killed in Israel and Palestine since October 7th. We must find a way to stop the bloodshed and end this conflict once and for all. The prevailing opinion among Israel, the United States, and the United Kingdom right now is that Israel must destroy Hamas in retaliation for the October 7th atrocities and to protect the Gaza envelope communities from further attack. They claim that the only way to defeat Hamas and bring home the hostages, one of whom is a distant cousin of mine, is through a prolonged ground war. They're dead wrong. Flattening Gaza will see tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians killed and will only feed the next generation of trauma and hatred. Countless Israeli soldiers will undoubtedly die, and it significantly increases the risk both of an airstrike killing the hostages, or it expedites their execution as Hamas gets progressively more desperate. This policy will not make Israel any safer. It will feed global anti-Semitism, harden extremists on both sides, recruit the next generation of militants as we're offering them no alternative, and will bring us ever closer to World War III. We urgently need to use our imagination, our creativity, and our idealism to end this humanitarian catastrophe, bring the hostages home, and ensure this never happens again. Here's one idea how to accomplish this. We can call it the Mother's Peace Plan, and in my wildest dreams, this is how it would look. The Arab League will offer Israel complete normalization of relations and an eternal peace. Full diplomatic, business, and cultural ties will be established across the Middle East. But in order to achieve this, the following conditions must be met. Israel and Hamas will agree to an immediate ceasefire. Not a single bullet, or rocket, or missile will be fired. The killing will stop. Water, food, fuel, electricity, humanitarian aid, telephone and internet access, as well as international press, will immediately be allowed back into Gaza. All Israelis being held by Hamas or others in Gaza will then be released immediately. All Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails will then be released immediately. Israel will crack down on the settler pogroms in the West Bank and will guard Palestinians there to ensure a safe olive harvest. Iran will then agree to a nuclear program purely for domestic energy production. They will end their nuclear weapons program, agree to UN inspections, cease funding and military support for Hamas, Hezbollah, and Islamic Jihad, who will then be required to disarm, and sanctions on Iran will be lifted. In every major conflict, warring parties have always disarmed and entered politics, and this conflict will be no exception. Iranian sanctions will be lifted once all groups agree to disarm and do so by a specific date. Gaza's 18-year-old blockade will end. A date will then be set 2 years from now in November 2025, when Palestine will officially become a sovereign nation and join the United Nations as a member state. A new Palestinian parliament will be formed of Palestinian civil society representatives, faith leaders, community leaders from within Palestine as well as the diaspora, and can include previous members of armed groups provided they have agreed to completely disarm and enter the political process. This body will eventually replace the Palestinian Authority. The new capital of Palestine will be in East Jerusalem. The borders of the state will roughly correspond to the pre-1967 borders with appropriate land swaps as negotiated. Israeli settlers will be brought back into the borders of Israel and will be compensated for their relocation. In due time, when safe to do so, they will be able to visit their holy sites in Judea and Samaria as religious pilgrims. Israel will then join NATO as a member state, ensuring that it will have the security it requires to make peace. There will be no arguments from Israel that this is indefensible, as Benjamin Netanyahu has previously stated, as they will now have the protection of Article 5 to ensure their safety. The European Union and the Arab League will enter a defense pact with Palestine to protect and defend it if Palestine is attacked. Such an agreement will ensure that both sides will have every incentive to negotiate whenever there are disputes. The United States, the United Kingdom, European Union, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates will flood money into a Palestine Development Fund to rebuild Palestine. A new high-speed rail will connect Gaza and the West Bank. Palestinians will travel for free. The Gazan Riviera will be built. Reparations will be paid to displaced Palestinians around the world. There will be a new common currency used by both Israel and Palestine, the Palestina. It will feature the work of Israeli and Palestinian artists. A new stamp with the message "Made in the Holy Land" with joint Palestinian and Israeli labor will appear on all products made between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. Consumers around the world, instead of boycotting these goods, will flock to purchase them as a gesture of peace and goodwill. A new Palestine Defense Force will be formed to provide security throughout Palestine and will work closely with Israeli authorities to keep the peace. They will also have a coast guard to protect Gaza. Palestinians will have 2 years required national service. Controversial judicial reforms in Israel will not go ahead, and current charges against Benjamin Netanyahu will be dropped. The international community will also agree not to prosecute either the Israeli leadership or the Hamas leadership for their war crimes. A truth and reconciliation process will be established to aid the healing of both nations. An annual day of mourning will be commemorated in joint Israeli and Palestinian events to honor those who paid the ultimate price for peace. The holy sites of Jerusalem will be shared. Muslims and Jews will be allowed to pray at separate times on the Temple Mount, Haram al-Sharif. The holy sites of Jerusalem will be guarded by a new corps of unarmed Israeli and Palestinian mothers who have buried their children due to the violence. They will be the visible stewards of the holy sites as joint Israeli and Palestinian security services work in the background. They will be called the Mothers, and their uniform will be designed through an international design competition. Think of a Jerusalem version of the Tower of London Beefeaters or the Vatican Swiss Guard. They will wear a photograph of their child. Tourists will flock to the city, bow to the new matriarchs who have sacrificed everything for peace, and bear witness to the official changing of the guard ceremony from Friday to Saturday to Sunday, as Muslims, Jews, and Christians peacefully coexist in the holy city of Jerusalem. We cannot change what's happened over the last 75 years. We cannot change what happened on October 7th or what's happened since. We cannot bring those 1,400 Israelis back to life. We cannot bring the 8,000 Palestinians, including 4,000 children, back to life. But with some imagination, creativity, and some idealism, we can imagine a safe pathway to end the violence, bring the hostages home, and forge a new future for the Middle East to ensure that this never happens again. Enough fighting, enough bloodshed. It's time to stop burying our children. It's time to fight for peace. Please share. Thank you.